If you've been a viewer of mine for some time, then you'll know that I've made plenty of videos covering various Tekken games. From mainline entries to the portable games, I have plenty of experience with the series, although I still suck. My Tekken journey began sometime in the late 2000s with the release of Tekken 6 in the arcade. Even though I was still a little kid at that time, I have fond memories of playing not just vanilla Tekken 6 but also Bloodline Rebellion, and it sent me down a rabbit hole of 3D fighting games. Many years later, I got a copy of the game for the PS3 and I spent so much time playing this game. All of this is to say that I've played Tekken 6 many times over the years, so you'd think that I know everything about the game, but I actually don't. Today, we're going to be covering not just the final game, but we'll also be covering the game's development, reception, and legacy to see not just what Tekken 6 was like on launch, but also to see what it's like nowadays and maybe even before launch. With plenty of new characters and features, there's a lot to cover here, so get ready for the next battle as we dive into the world of Tekken 6. After the release of 2004's Tekken 5 on the PS2, Bandai Namco quickly started work on two new projects, Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection and a brand new entry into the series. Despite Dark Resurrection releasing on next-gen systems at the time, like the PS3, it's simply an update to the original Tekken 5 and it uses the same engine and graphical assets. This new game, however, was meant to truly take the series forward into the world of HD games. In 2005, full development had barely started on Tekken 6, but it was shown off at E3 that year with a short pre-rendered trailer under the name of Tekken. According to an interview with series director Katsuhiro Harada, this trailer was made when the Tekken team were primarily focused on completing Dark Resurrection, and they also didn't have much experience developing games for the PS3 yet. Not many details were provided about this new title to the public until April 27, 2006, when IGN reported that Japanese gaming magazine Famitsu apparently revealed that the new game would be called Tekken 6, and that it would be officially revealed at that year's E3. That's exactly what happened, as a brand new trailer was demonstrated at the event. This trailer doesn't contain any real-time gameplay with health bars and things like that, but Harada does state that what we see here was running in real time on the PS3, and that it wasn't pre-rendered. It's a bit hard to tell what's going on here due to the low video quality, but I assume that these are the same character models found in Tekken 5, although I'm not 100% sure. Speaking of characters, Lily, Hwoarang, Jin, and Devil Jin were all confirmed for this game, although I find it interesting how there's no mention of Kazuya or Heihachi. Perhaps the game's plot was originally meant to focus more on the internal conflict between Jin and the Devil Gene? Who knows? It's also important to keep in mind that at this point, Tekken 6 was still a PlayStation exclusive, much like all the other mainline entries into the series up until this point. It's hard to find information about the game between E3 2006 and its 2007 launch in Japanese arcades, but I was able to find an issue of Famitsu that announced Miguel, a brand new character, to the world. On the next page of this magazine, Leo, Zafina, Kazuya, Heihachi, and Yoshimitsu all have new character renders, and these still look awesome. Also, Tekken 6 uses the Octave engine, a physics engine that, according to an Engadget article, can dynamically simulate hydrodynamics on a game machine. Tekken 6's development team considered animation and visual effects to be extremely important aspects of fighting games, and with the series making the jump onto more advanced hardware, they did all they could to improve the game's visuals when compared to Tekken 5. Many animations from Tekken 5 were tweaked or remade from scratch to accommodate for the new physics engine, and Harada provided 3 reasons for this in another interview. Fans wanted better animations, the look and flow of the animation seems weaker or more powerful than the actual move's damage or properties, and we want to add a new purpose to the move to open up more possibilities. As for the game's new characters, there are 4 of them. Miguel, Zafina, Leo, and Bob were the Tekken 6 newcomers, and they were loosely based on fan requests from players around the world. Another set of fan requests also influenced the game in a pretty major way, as from Tekken 6 onwards the series would become multi-platform. Harada stated that after hearing many Xbox 360 users in North America were fans of the series, Namco was persuaded to bring the game to that system in addition to the PS3. Their intention was to make the game as accessible as possible, and even said that a Wii port of Tekken 6 wasn't off the table if fans really wanted it. The earliest public mention of the 360 version I can find online is from an old Giant Bomb forum dated to October 8, 2008, and fans seemed really happy that they would be able to play Tekken 6 even if they didn't own a PS3. In late 2007 and early 2008, Tekken 6 was officially released in arcades around the world, but the team weren't done. In December 2008, Tekken 6 Bloodline Rebellion, an update in the same vein as Dark Resurrection, was released, and this not only featured balance changes, but it also had some brand new characters. Lars and Elisa were the newcomers this time around, and they were designed to attract new types of fans to the series. Another new feature was the inclusion of nicer looking visual effects, as while the original arcade release ran at 60 FPS in high definition, things like motion blur and particle effects were improved for Bloodline Rebellion. Before we move on, I'll also say that the home ports of Tekken 6 run at lower resolutions than the arcade version. I believe that porting the game to home consoles with all its graphical qualities at a frame rate of 60 frames a second would have been simply too much for these poor guys to handle, so the developers included a workaround as a result. By the way, a big thanks to an amazing write-up about the game's graphics goes to Eurogamer for the following information. So, if you're on 360 and you enable the motion blur, the game will run at a resolution of 1024 by 576, but if you disable motion blur, the resolution gets boosted to 1365 by 768. If you're on PS3, however, the game will always run at 1024 by 576 no matter what. What happens instead is that if you disable the motion blur on PS3, 2x multi-sampling anti-aliasing gets enabled. I have no idea what absolutely any of this means, but I've seen some fan outcry online about the game looking worse than the arcade version. There are a lot of technical details in this piece involving the GPU and RAM of the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and I can't get into it properly because I know that my lack of experience in this field will cause me to report on things wrong, so I'd recommend looking up this Eurogamer piece yourself if you'd like to learn more. I can't imagine that porting the game, that ran on a PS3-based arcade board mind you, to the Xbox 360 would have been easy, but the game's developers did the best they could, and it's not like the gameplay was compromised. Wow, what a segue. Yep, it's time to talk about Tekken 6's gameplay. The basic button layout and seemingly endless move list for every character make a return, but there are some new features here too. Before we get into them, however, I'd also like to point out the game's character roster. This thing is massive, and Tekken 6 also released during a time when fighting game character DLC wasn't as big as it is now, so all of these characters are unlocked right from the get-go. We have the popular characters from the older games, the exciting newcomers, the new characters from Tekken 5 and Dark Resurrection, and characters who I'm surprised made a return in the HD era of Tekken, so this is one of the best rosters in any mainline Tekken game, at least in my opinion. There are 39 characters in total, and as each of them would have required a massive amount of work, including them all couldn't have been easy, so a big shout out to the nameless animators and programmers at Namco for pulling all of this off. With lots of characters comes lots of variety, and each of them have wildly different movesets. There's a type of character and fighting style for everyone in Tekken 6, and as this is a game that gives me Armor King, Bruce, Jin, Julia, and Mokujin, I can't help but love it. By the way, the new characters also introduce not just new fighting styles, but also new kinds of animations, with the standouts to me being Zafina and Miguel. Their mix of weird contortionism and laid-back cocky fisticuffs have never really been seen in the series before, and they do an astounding job of expressing personality. Just by watching Miguel fight, for example, we can tell that while he's really strong, he's also pretty bored, and he's not fighting with any sense of concentration. While a character like Jin, for example, may be constantly determined and alert, Miguel is just going to swing at anyone that comes his way with reckless abandon, and this is a pretty interesting juxtaposition between some of the old and the new characters. Lars and Elisa also steer pretty hard into anime territory with their animations and their character designs, but I can't help but love the way they look and they animate, it's super nostalgic for me. Anyway, let's go back to the new game mechanics for a moment. The first of which is Rage. When you're low on health in a match, your health bar turns red, and this gives you extra damage. It's essentially Tekken's comeback mechanic, and it does remind me a lot of the Netsu system in the first Tekken Tag Tournament. Rage has gone on to become a staple of the series, and while it was expanded on in Tekken 7, this system feels a little bit bare bones going back to Tekken 6. If you're the losing player, getting a damage buff feels really nice, especially when you can do monstrous damage like this, but I feel that it's a bit too much sometimes. Combos in this game are a lot longer than the ones in Tekken 5, so having even more damage on top of longer combos makes some interactions a bit one-sided, which is a problem that many people consider the series to be dealing with today in Tekken 8. One reason for lengthier combos in Tekken 6 is the brand new bounce system. Older Tekken combos would usually be a launcher into a string into an ender, and you'd either get damage, Oki, or wall carry as a result. This still applies in Tekken 6, but the bounce system acts as a combo extender. You'd normally put this in the middle of your combo to slam the enemy downwards, allowing you to easily keep attacking them. You can also bound the enemy after a wall splat, leading to even more damage. I like this system a lot personally, as it allows for new types of combos and strategies for every character, while not dramatically shaking up Tekken's classic gameplay formula. Characters all have different types of bounds that possess varying speeds, so finding one fast enough to fit inside of a combo is crucial. Combine this with Rage, and many characters can become one-hit death machines if they land a solid hit, especially if there's a wall in the distance. The final new addition to Tekken 6 is the inclusion of destructible environments. Some stages feature breakable walls and floors, so if you ever wanted stage transitions in Tekken, here you go. These are great for not just extra damage, but also longer combos, and having the stage itself change after one of these is so cool. It's not like you're going from one stage down to a completely identical stage on the bottom floor either, as these transitions can lead to stages with different shapes and sizes, forcing players to adapt their stage strategies in real time. Something you would see all the time in competitive Tekken were pro players picking stages that complemented their characters. An example is that in Tekken 7, every King and Armor King player under the sun would pick Forgotten Realm because of the stage's multiple floor breaks. Speaking of the stages, they're simply beautiful looking. My favorite as a kid was always this one in the sky with the jets flying in the background. I have absolutely zero idea how the stage even works when you take the laws of physics into account, but it's simply stunning, and the music is incredible too. The other stages all take on different forms, so finding the right type of stage for your character is very important. If you have a character with strong movement and keep away, try choosing an infinite stage. If you want to do the opposite and get right in their grill, go for a smaller stage. Having the stage itself directly impact player strategy has always been one of the coolest parts of 3D fighting games, and Tekken 6 illustrates this perfectly. As solid as the game's mechanics are, it'd get old really quickly if there weren't any fun modes, so let's see what content Tekken 6 has to offer. The classic arcade mode is here, and after fighting a string of opponents, you reach the final boss, Azazel. If you're a Tekken fan, then you'll instantly know that he's a pain to fight against due to him being able to block your attacks by just standing there. The trick to beating Azazel is to hit him during his attack startup frames, and after a couple of attacks, he'll go down. Upon defeating Azazel, the game brings you to the credits. Now's about the time that you'd normally see your character's ending, right? But we'll get to this later. After this, we have Ghost Battle. You can fight an infinite number of opponents here, and the goal is to rank up your character as much as you can. Defeating enemies also gives you money, which you can then use to customize your fighter. Customization was one of the most enjoyable aspects of Tekken 5, so it's awesome to see that it returns in Tekken 6. There are so many cosmetic items for you to choose from, and I used to use this mode so many times as a kid to create really weird looking alternate outfits for my characters. You can find videos online of people making superb looking outfits, so the sky is really the limit here. Team Battle, Survival, and Time Trial all make a return, with my favorite being the former. It's disappointing how Tekken 7 and 8 don't have Team Battle mode, and I'm sure we've all had a good time playing this mode with friends and family. Making a team with a bunch of your favorite characters is very fun, and as you can just pass controllers around the room, it allows multiple people to jump in and play. There's also a gallery mode that lets you not only view cinematics from the game's story mode, but you can also watch the game's intro movies from the arcade version. Their inclusion in the console version helps to preserve these videos, and I'm glad that Namco included these intros here. Another thing I'm glad was included is online play. This is obviously guaranteed nowadays in modern fighting games, but back in the early 2000s, not every fighting game had online functionalities, and due to Tekken 6 using Japanese delay-based netcode, it's not great. Being able to play online would have been a dream come true for Tekken fans, and although PS3's Dark Resurrection HD had online play, having it also be in the new game would have been so cool. Finally, and this is the big one, Tekken 6 has a fully fledged cinematic story mode called Scenario Campaign. Lars and Alisa are the main characters here, and the story follows their journey to defeat Jin and Azazel or something. Look, it's no secret that this mode's narrative is extremely convoluted, and the frequent lengthy cutscenes only make things harder to understand. I've even finished this mode a few times in the past, and even now, I still have no idea what's going on. In terms of gameplay, Scenario Campaign takes the form of a beat-em-up, so it's very similar to Tekken Force. You still have all your characters' moves here, it's just that the camera angle is completely different, so adjusting to this can take some time. Although Lars is the official protagonist, you can choose which character to start the game with, and they each have unique dialogue strings. Alisa is your AI-controlled partner, and she helps you fight enemies, but her AI can be pretty wonky at times. Sometimes she'll just stand there and get hit, and I've even seen her jump off the stage and die before. There are also no checkpoints in Scenario Campaign, so if you go down, it's all the way back to the start of the stage for you. Most levels here only take a few minutes to finish, but some of them can go on for quite a while, and this makes things extremely stressful when you're down on health. To spice things up a bit, Namco included a gear system into Scenario Campaign, and this feels like it belongs super well in a JRPG. By equipping cosmetic items, you can give your character stat boosts, and these can range from extra damage, extra health, and even elemental effects like shock or freeze. Every level in this mode can be replayed as many times as you want over and over again, so a big part of it is grinding for high level gear to improve your chances of finishing the more challenging later levels. I really like the gear system, as it provides users with a level of player expression that I haven't seen in many other fighting game story modes. Most levels end with a boss fight, and after you defeat them, they become unlocked in the arena mode. This is part of Scenario Campaign's world map, and it's here where you can see character endings, although these are pretty mediocre, I can't even lie. Gone are the days of every single character having a meaningful and sometimes thought-provoking storyline, because the endings here are usually very short and inconsequential. Kazuya's ending doesn't even have any dialogue at all, and he's one of the main characters, and don't get me started on Armor King's ending, where he looks at a photo and then walks into the camera. Yes, that's literally the whole ending. If you want to unlock all of the character endings, you're gonna have to grind Scenario Campaign to unlock every character, and as some levels can only be accessed via secret methods on certain difficulty levels, I recommend using a guide to help you out. While the other modes in Tekken 6 aren't anything crazy, Scenario Campaign is still very unique, and while its weird control scheme and camera angles can sometimes make it frustrating, I still like it overall. Okay look, it's not the best single player mode I've ever played in a fighting game or anything like that, but I do love how the developers expanded on the previous game's Tekken Force mode, and creating all of the cutscenes could not have been cheap. When it was released for home consoles in late 2009, Tekken 6 received positive reviews, and critics loved the game's combat systems, character roster, and visual style. Despite being compared to its contemporaries Soul Calibur 4 and Virtua Fighter 5, Tekken 6 still held its own as the brand new installment of this classic franchise. During its first week on sale in Japan, Tekken 6 sold over 100,000 copies, making it the fastest selling fighting game at the time. Later, in May 2011, Bandai Namco reported that by 2010, the game had sold over 1.5 million copies, and a 2011 report from Eurogamer states that the game went on to sell over 3.5 million copies. In terms of sales, the game was a smash hit around the world, but there were some aspects that critics and fans weren't too keen on. The aforementioned Scenario Campaign mode was often criticized for its plot, camera angles, and environments, and the common consensus regarding this mode was that it was too repetitive in the long run. The mode's length and the variety provided by the gear system was praised though, so it wasn't all bad. New features like the bounce system and floor breaks were appreciated for their strategic depth, but rage was a bit mixed. Some players enjoyed how it made combats more accessible, but others felt that the sheer amount of damage provided by this feature was way too high. The newcomers were also well received, with Elisa being praised the most by critics. Her anime-inspired design may not be for everyone, but the sheer creativity behind her animations can't be denied. Zafina was often praised as being the most unique newcomer, however, and with moves like these, I can't disagree. Also, as Tekken was a PlayStation exclusive series up until this point, many fans were eager to try out the PS3 version, but they would have had to wait through extremely long loading times. If you don't install the game's data from the disc onto your console's hard drive, everything, even the most simple of menus, takes forever to load, and when combined with the game's spotty netcode, it meant that the PS3 version was ironically the worst way to play the game. To combat all this, Namco released patches for the game to circumvent online-related issues, and as OneUp.com went back and amended their review after the patches came out, these seem to have helped. As far as the game's legacy goes, Tekken 6 has had a very strong one. Lars, Elisa, Zafina, and Leo all show up in Tekken 8, and characters like Miguel and Bob were base roster characters for Tekken 7. Things like floor breaks, rage mode, and combo extenders are all staples of the series nowadays, so a lot of Tekken 6's DNA is found in the more recent Tekken games. In a 2017 retrospective article with Harada, he stated that Tekken 6 brought in an influx of new players to the series, and this influenced the direction of future games. Also, as Lars was the game's protagonist, he was very popular, so much so that he received a new costume from Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, and Lars even made his way into Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 as a playable character. Overall, even though Tekken 6 is nearly 20 years old as of me recording this video, which is terrifying by the way, its effects on the series are still felt today, and it introduced many new concepts that we've all become adjusted to in the modern era of Tekken. If you couldn't tell by now, I love Tekken 6. Am I biased because I used to play this game in the arcade all the time as a kid? Absolutely, but even now as an adult, I still have a lot of fun with the game, and it was amazing going back to Tekken 6 to record footage for this video. Tekken 6 can be played nowadays via backwards compatibility via the modern Xbox consoles, and you can even emulate it on PC, so I recommend giving it a shot. It's pretty outdated nowadays in terms of competitive play, but as this was the last game in the series to not have DLC, I feel as though the game marks the end of an era. Tekken Tag Tournament 2 onwards promoted a more aggressive style of play, and while aggression definitely works in Tekken 6, this game still has the DNA of old school Tekken that was lost in Tekken 7 onwards, at least in my view. Okay, I think you get the point by now, so I'll take this as my cue to end our one-sided conversation. Thanks for watching, I hope you had fun, and I'll see you in the next one.